Hello, my name is Elijah Wells, and today's review is George Miller's new movie, Furiosa. Taking place 15 to 20 years before the events of Fury Road, Furiosa, portrayed by Anya Taylor-Joy, gets kidnapped by the incredibly brutal and fierce warlord Dementors, being portrayed by Chris Hainsworth, and Furiosa pretty much works her way both as a slave and a hostage as Dementors until being eventually traded over to Immortan Joe, played by Lance Holland, if I pronounce his name correctly. And in this case, around that point, she does chores like doing deliveries and fending up ambushes and trying to plot her own escape to go back to the land of plenty. After the cultural phenomenon that was Mad Max Fury Road, which, although it wasn't definitely the biggest winner of the box office at 2015, but it was definitely the critical favourite of that year, as not just it was considered by almost by every news and media outlet the best film of 2015, but later by most of them being one of the best films of 2010, so much so that even Empire magazine put, I think, above Lord of the Rings as one of the best films of the century so far. So, of course, the anticipation for this movie was unbearably huge at this point. Even though there was this massive legal battle that's been going on with George Miller and Warner Brothers over the salary of what he was owed from the Fury Road movie, and of course, actually Theron, who portrayed Furiosa in Fury Road, was getting a bit old to play the younger Furiosa that takes place like 15 years before the events of the Fury Road, so they brought in Anya Taylor-Joy, who of course was known for her roles in films like Last Night in Soho, The Menu, and a big box office breakout being playing Princess Peaches in Super Mario Bros. Movie. So of course, the anticipation and the hype was understandably huge, and did it pay off? Well, this movie isn't exactly Fury Road or Road Warrior level good, but the movie is still brilliant, in my opinion. Like I said, the movie is absolutely amazing, and of course the movie does go back to the stronger sides of Fury Road, and of course the entirety of the Mad Max films, with Mel Gibson as the original star, and then later Tom Hardy in Fury Road. But what is also really good to see is it does come back to its strong suits, as in its massive reliance on car chases and a lot of practical effects. Even though, again, in the 80s films, Mel Gibson, I don't think CGI was that big of a thing for George Miller. Like, I don't think he had that in his expense, but in Fury Road, he still massively amplified practical over visuals, except for like some key sequences, like maybe a couple of cars in the background and the tornado scene. Again, I'm really so happy that he stuck to his guns and stuck to practical in this case. Even though the movie, again, isn't narrative-wise as reliant on car chases, let's say like Fury Road was or Road Warrior, but again, when it comes, particularly in the ambush scene in Fury Road, which took allegedly 78 days to film. Like, if you put that to perspective, that's like roughly 2.5 months just to execute that one sequence. Where Furiosa is like, with Jack, is driving this massive lorry that's filled with like cabbages, and they get ambushed. Like, that took like 78 days to do. Like, imagine AI doing that, like, oh, I can do that in 2 seconds. No, do something in 78 days, and it'll be worth it. Like, you'll be rewarded plentiful, kind of like what the movie says. Chris Hemsworth as Dementors is practically one pretty evil person. Like, Chris Hemsworth did say in his Hot Ones interviews, like, he got a lot more freedom, a lot more joy out of performing this movie, let's say, playing an average superhero or hero character, as to say, because it gave him a lot more freedom, a lot more muscles to stretch, and a lot more boundaries he can go into as a supervillain, which you can definitely see how it does reflect off that philosophy into that performance. Like, the stuff he does is like truly just really horrible, like crucifying Furiosa's mom in front of her, and like attempting to annex towns after towns, and holding a lot of people down to ransom. He is basically a guerrilla terrorist in a world of warlords. And there's also Anya Taylor-Joy as Furiosa, And yes, she does do a really compelling performance in this movie. And how does she compare to, like, say, Charlize Theron in the movie? I say she's worthy of that performance. Because, let's face it, it's a lovely day for Anya Taylor-Joy, who, like Charlize Theron, like, the way both Charlize and Anya did is that they were both pretty intense about their performance, and they don't go out the way to do exposition dumps. And so much so, Anya's iteration had only like 30 lines in the movie, mostly towards the end of the film, which is again very surprising since I think her badassery kind of speaks on itself and doesn't say, "Hey, I did a good job. Hey, look at me." Like again, the lack of dialogue feels a lot more easier to process the imagery around you without having characters saying, "Oh, look out for this. Oh, look out for that," which is again something I do majorly appreciate out of this movie. The world building and designs in this movie, in my opinion, I would say for a better word, it's a lot bigger than Fury Road, as in you do of course see a lot more of the world around Furiosa than as opposed to Fury Road, in my opinion, because you do see like Bullet Town, you do see the oil town as the Bullet Farm and the oil town as well, and of course a lot more angles of the Immortan Joe's layer, of course, and of course the Green Place or the Land of Plenty, which again does reference quite a lot bit in the Fury Road, particularly in one iconic scene in Fury Road where Charlize Theron, her character during Fury Road, walks up a sand dune, then claps to her knees and just screams out, which is, again, I don't want to spoil Fury Road for you, but if you know, you know, or again, which is very interesting how they basically link the two worlds, not just with the wider world of the Mel Gibson movies, and as well as the Fury Road movie, which again I found really good as well. The costuming work, what I particularly like is Dementor's work, which although he does often have a teddy bear, but it's also a very clever mise-en-scène within a costume and a very interesting motif because he's always surprisingly fascinated in children, but not in a supremely unsettling and more creepy fashion, but he has some fascination towards them that does maybe rub people the wrong way, but that in more of an antagonistic way, which is something that does seem to catch my attention when watching a movie. And of course, I think that my favorite designs out of this movie is probably the oil town, which is the more dirty, the more industrial, let's say the more something like Bullet Town, where it looks like a more like a glorified quarry than it is a farm of bullets, which again looks very interesting. Even the farm of bullets, who has a helmet literally made out of bullets, which is something I found extremely fascinating in my opinion. The movie has a lot more of a build up and more of a slow burn, let's say, to like Fury Road, when it does like pick up a notch, 1, then 1, 2, then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and 6. This one, it does take its time a little bit more, particularly, like I said, in the ambush scene, where it does, where I did say it took like 78 days to do, and the action, again, is definitely enthralling, and also incredibly gorgeous, like I said, in all the action films, but particularly in the third act, where it does shine a little bit, where the more of a slow burning, although slower pace, not in a negative way, but the movie is a little bit slower than Fury Road, but in a way that it kind of like eases you in rather than just like bore you. In a sense of a word, like it just gives itself some time, like and your patience in the film does get rewarded, particularly in the final third of the movie, which again the payoff is like a cherry on top, and it's a chef's kiss. And although the violence in the movie is definitely maybe a bit much for some people, particularly the fate of certain characters like Furiosa's mom, who again got crucified of like a burnt out tree or something, and the violence, particularly in, like in the several ambushes scenes and the fight in the Bullet Town, is also really interesting and really gripping as well. Again, not as many, like say, fight scenes that are purely based on vehicles, but a little bit more like I said, the Bullet Farm one is literally Furiosa using a sniper to snipe the baddies around the Bullet Farm, which is again a cool idea that had been used and had been explored in like previous films with Mel Gibson using a sniper. And the film's cinematography, all the previous movies that came before it, is absolutely gorgeous. And it's definitely a major strong suit in the movie as well, particularly when Furiosa is just driving her motorcycle alone or standing in the middle of a road after the ambush. That's where this, or standing with Jack in the middle of the road, which is definitely a really strong highlight in the movie as well. And particularly shots where it does basically stares out into the desert, as you see like a massive army of bikers of Dementors like crawling around a canyon. Particularly if you saw it in the trailer, it kind of reminds me of like a paint stroke or a paintbrush like stroking a portrait, which is again something that reminds me a lot, particularly again in Fury Road, where it goes into a tornado, where the first time we see it properly is like almost like a Renaissance painting, where you see like tiny figures of motorcycles and cars, and this massive ball of cloud and dust and sand, like blooming over the entire scene, which again does go to its really strong suits, particularly in its action scenes and one of the more intimate scenes, particularly when Furiosa literally races up a sand dune just to catch up with Dementors, which is again a really nice scene to put and definitely to shoot as well. Although this is definitely more of a slow burn out of the entire Mad Max films, and even though Mad Max has a glorified cameo in this movie, the movie does stand up on its own, definitely as a Furiosa movie. Like, the design of this movie is incredible, the cinematography is top notch, and the acting is brilliant, particularly of Chris Hemsworth and Anya Taylor-Joy, and the movie just feels like totally intense, and the action scenes are completely insane, and the movie's like more lower down pacing definitely does pay off at the end, particularly with its brilliant ending where it does neatly tie him back into Fury Road, as it is a prequel to Fury Road, and it does majorly focus on Furiosa and her tragic backstory about losing her mom and getting kidnapped by Dementors and being traded over to Immortan Joe, which again, everything you see about the movie does fit into this massive scope and this massive world building that George Miller has created, and how you managed to comprehend nearly 50 plus years of like some of the most amazing films probably out there. So for Furiosa, I am feeling an 8 out of 10. So, what do you think of Furiosa? Let me know in the comments down below. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. And this is Elijah Wells, and bye.